Hey, what's up you guys? This is Neil, your Pinoy Plantito. A lot of you guys have been asking me what's the name of the plant behind me in my videos, because this is the spot where I usually shoot my vlogs. And finally today we'll be talking about this plant, which happens to be also one of my favorite plants in my garden. And one of the images I posted in my Instagram account, Pinoy Plantito Neil, where this plant was featured, one of the followers commented that this gotta be one of his favorite plants in my garden because it provides dimension to my garden. And he couldn't be more right, but more than the aesthetics, really, there's so much more to this plant than just providing dimension and being a center of attraction in this garden. So today we'll be talking about the Calathea Lutea, its origins, how I was able to grow this plant from a mere 2 feet to more than 16 feet in just a matter of 1 year. And lastly, we will have a repotting section. Oh, by the way, if you're new to this channel, my name is Neil, plant care tips and tutorials, and just basically everything about plants. I hope that you can make this channel your home channel, and I would really highly appreciate it if you can hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you'll be updated with all the latest videos coming up in this. The Calathea Lutea is known for a lot of common names like Calathea cigar or Calathea tobacco, but the correct name for this plant is really Calathea Lutea. And like any other Calathea, this belongs to the genus Calathea under the family of Marantaceae, where Marantas, Stromantes, and of course Calatheas belong. Calathea Lutea is on the bigger varieties of Calatheas, but it actually has several varieties that you might get confused with Calathea Lutea. Some of these are the following. The distinctive features of Calathea Lutea, however, is having a rounder shape of leaves and silvery, bluish, powdery leaf undersides. So this Calathea Lutea of mine was planted sometime in early 2020, last year. It was initially a plant that I had inside my house. So it was an indoor plant, but it wasn't doing really great inside my house. So one day I decided, as a punishment, to plant it outside on the ground. I was thinking maybe it's not liking the environment inside my house, so maybe putting it outside would be best for it. So I planted this Calathea Lutea in this pot in this picture where you can see right now, and looking back right now, probably if I have only studied about Calatheas, I wouldn't have planted my Calathea Lutea in this place. You know why? Because knowing Calatheas to be really fussy plants, they are those types of plants who won't really like being exposed to direct sunlight. Because this spot was actually, I call this spot the dead spot, because all the plants that I initially planted here almost died because of the harshness of direct sunlight. This area is actually very exposed to direct sunlight. It is hit by direct sunlight from 11 a.m. down to 5 p.m., which is the harsher sunlight, because as we know, noontime sunlight and afternoon sunlight are harsher than the morning sun. But somehow I just did that anyway, because back then I just got into gardening, and I wasn't that type of person who would, research a lot about plants before diving into planting. I was like, oh, let's do this. So I was really excited in planting right away. The Calathea Lutea here was barely surviving for 3 to 4 months and has barely grown. It still remained to be like somehow between 2 to 3 feet high. But by June, where rainy season usually starts in the Philippines, to jumpstart its growth, and it was unstoppable from then. So from barely 2 to 3 feet, it has grown now into more than 16 feet. Because my wall, which is made of this black long span material, is 16 feet high. And my Calathea luteas now are higher than that. So it means that it's more than 16 feet right now. So basically in just about a year, my Calathea lutea has grown from 3 feet to more than 16 feet. And it's really amazing. It's now a monster. It's now a giant Calathea lutea. And aside from that, it has also developed a lot of shoots. There were originally just 3 Calathea luteas here, guys, but now it's like I can't count them anymore. There's a lot of them right now. So what I love about this Calathea lutea is that it provides a good dimension to my garden. Really, I cannot imagine how this spot would look like without this Calathea lutea. It is such a very important feature of my garden that it is so hard for anyone coming in this garden not to notice this Calathea lutea. But more than providing dimension and having aesthetic uses, there's so much to this Calathea lutea than what meets the eye. For example, I consider this Calathea lutea to be the plant that paves the way for other plants to thrive in this place. So in a way, it's the one that trailblazed and encouraged more life to develop in this place. You see, when the Calathea lutea started to grow, its huge leaves provided canopy against the direct sunlight, so that when I started to put smaller plants underneath this Calathea lutea, they started to thrive. And also because I live in the tropics, where one of the problems for a lot of gardeners is during the rainy season is excessive watering that could lead to root rot or stem rot for a lot of plants. The Calathea lutea is also very useful in a sense that the huge leaves limits the amount of water going down. So it acted like a natural umbrella protecting the smaller plants from either excessive sunlight or excessive rainwater. So that's the reason why I love this Calathea lutea. I consider this Calathea lutea to be my natural greenhouse. Aside from the fact that it's actually one of the most stunning features of my garden. Now let's go to the care of Calathea lutea. First, let's talk about lighting. One of the most amazing characteristics of a Calathea lutea, guys, is something that a lot of people do not know, because they think that Calatheas are just pretty much the same. Okay, fuzzy plants that likes just medium to bright indirect light and high humidity and well draining soil. All right, so and that's what I thought also. Only later on did I get to read more and learn more about Calatheas, because this Calathea lutea is one of those plants that I planted earlier in my gardening journey. And I was so thankful that I was ignorant back then, because I wouldn't have planted my Calathea lutea in this spot if I have read more about Calatheas being fussy, hating direct sunlight. But the thing about the Calathea lutea is that it's unlike any other Calatheas, because Calathea lutea loves very bright light and can even tolerate direct sunlight without getting burned. Okay, so that's what's amazing about the Calathea lutea. So a lot of people are having problems with their Calatheas indoors, and that was also my case, because I just realized that if Calatheas can tolerate direct sunlight, it means that these are light-loving plants. So if you put them in darker areas of your indoor spaces, then the tendency is for them to be not okay with that. I see a lot of those who take care of Calathea luteas indoors having crisp edges on the leaves of their plants and looking so sad and all those things. So the lighting requirement for Calathea lutea is very bright light, if not direct sunlight. Okay, so make sure that if you are going to have a Calathea lutea be put indoors, it should take that spot where the light is brightest. Okay, now let's talk about the soil mix, and I'll be talking about the soil mix for indoor Calatheas and as well as those that are located outdoors like this. Okay, now generally the requirement for Calatheas, whether it's planted indoors or outdoors, should be a well-draining soil that is rich in organic matter. Okay, because that's the kind of soil that they're getting back in their places of origin. This spot, I haven't done anything with it, and it's not a really good soil. It's just it could be silty and all that. And I just planted this Calathea direct on the ground. So I would say that if you plant your Calathea Luteas outdoor, the soil mix wouldn't really matter a lot. And basically, you don't need to put a soil mix on the ground. But I would suggest that if you are planting your Calathea Lutea on the ground, just to help it jumpstart its growth, is you just need to dig a hole and put a really good soil mix that is well draining, and just to help the plant grow roots and establish and jumpstart its growth. Because once it did, it's gonna develop more roots, and there will be no problem what type of soil it is planted in. Okay. Now for indoors, guys, I'll be showing to you later, and it should be something that is different. Now we really need to have well draining soil, and the reason for that is because indoors, I don't expect that you will have as much light as outdoors, of course. So plants tend to produce less food, so they wouldn't use a lot of water. So you should not have a soil that does not release water easily or holds water too much, because the tendency is your plant, whatever that is, it could be Calathea lutea or any other plant. This principle is really applicable, guys. In fact, a lot of indoor plants, you should provide well draining soil for your plants, not to overwater them, because anyway they cannot use a lot of water since there is limited light. Okay, doing otherwise would encourage root rot or stem rot for your indoor plants. Okay, so for the soil mix, I would highly recommend that you use a well draining soil mix for indoor Calathea luteas. When it comes to watering, well, let's talk about outdoors and indoors as well, because there's a big difference. Okay, now this Calathea lutea, since it's already big, and actually even when it was about maybe 5 feet tall, I started not watering it. So I don't water this Calathea lutea. It gets water probably indirectly when I water the other plants surrounding it, but I don't really water it anymore because it already has enough roots to store water from the rain or from other sources. It's amazing that I don't have to take care of this Calathea lutea anymore. Now let's talk about watering for your Calathea luteas indoors. All right, so when you water your Calathea luteas indoors, yeah, just like what I said earlier, you should limit your watering because indoors the light is not as bright, it's not as abundant as it is outdoors, so the plant itself will not be needing a lot of water in producing food, because anyway the light is just very limited. So just be very cautious when it comes to watering your Calathea luteas indoors so as to prevent root rot or stem rot. Okay, so right now, guys, I'm gonna show you how to transplant Calathea luteas intended as indoor plants. Let's go. So right now, guys, I'm gonna get this Calathea lutea. This Calathea lutea is a variegated Calathea lutea, and I put it here because I thought that having too much light will increase the variegation. But what happened was directly the opposite, because I learned later on that exposing variegated plants to too much light, like in this area, this one is hit by direct sunlight. So the variegation have lessened. So what I will do is once transplanted on the pot, I will have this put in indoors where there's bright indirect light, so that variegation will be more encouraged. Right? Let's take it. Alright guys, so yeah, we have our variegated Calathea Lutea, and it has now, and we can split it into two already, like that. Alright guys, so we'll be doing a transplanting of Calathea Lutea now, intended for indoor space. Like what I said earlier, if it's intended to be an indoor Calathea Lutea, we need a well-draining soil. So for our mix, it's not going to be like a strictly arid mix, because that's going to be expensive, because I'll be using this plastic pail. This is not really a pot, but I bought this for 100 pesos, which is about $2, and I just put holes here so we can use it. A size like this would be really good if you want like a bigger Calathea Lutea, but you don't want it to be growing like that, like 16 feet. So this one will be enough to provide space for the roots, so that the Calathea Lutea indoors will be big enough but not too big for your space. Okay, so for our soil mix, guys, I'll be using this cocoa cubes, cocoa coir, and some carbonized rice hull, and mix with just the regular soil. We're just gonna mix it. So we have already transplanted, guys, this Calathea Lutea here, and here's another one. So I'm just gonna set them aside and stay them for some time to help them acclimate, and after that we're gonna put them indoors. All right, that's for me today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you learned a lot from this as well. So if you're someone who's planning to grow Calathea Luteas, whether indoors or outdoors, I hope this video was helpful for you. All the best to your gardening. This has been Neil, your Pinoy Plantito, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye, guys.